I'm delighted to say James Skehill is with us. James, how are you?
Very good, lads. How are yourself?
Yeah, it was a fairly electric weekend of hurling for different reasons. We'll talk about Limerick in a moment, but what's the truth about this Cork team? Because in fits and starts, they look like an absolute sensational team, and then there were other moments where Kilkenny seemed to have their number. Is that just a sign of a team learning and rising to a peak, that there are inconsistencies within a game like that?
Yeah. I think they're currently in the process of sort of finalising their game model and getting to grips with their game model. I think they have the players to do it. Which we saw at times yesterday. You know what I mean? But they're not quite. They're not near where Limerick are in terms of their game model progression. But Cork showed great glimpses of what they can do because they have the players to do so. And I think just yesterday, when they did get kind of caught, it was probably more lapses in concentration or even fatigue. You saw a lot of guys who cramping, but they're definitely on the road. They're on the right trajectory because, obviously the management team in Cork has sat down over last winter. They've developed this, I suppose, a core set of principles for the team. They've developed a model that they want to implement with the players that they have at hand, and they made a few panel switches, some more controversial than others, and they stuck with this model throughout the whole league and championship campaign. And even I myself questioned it in the Limerick League game. Would they stick with it? They've stuck with it, and yesterday was kind of the fruition of that labour.
So what are you seeing? What are the hallmarks of those principles and that philosophy?
How much time do I have? I think for a team to be successful, right, they have to have a core set of principles at the base. So you can't just go out nowadays and just play the game and say, right, come on, we'll tackle the most and we'll work the hardest and see where it goes. There has to be a common set of principles amongst the group for me, right? And I think what Cork have done is they've kind of, you can picture a pyramid, lads, right? And you can't progress onto the next level of game model until you've got your core set. So for me, they've got a fierce, honest bunch of players that are willing to do what's asked of them. And that's kind of the standard bearer. They've bought into the system that the management have put in front of them, and the players are they're believing in the system now from what I'm seeing. So you can't believe in a system or in a team until it's been tried and tested. You nearly have to try it, test, fail, try again, test, fail, and so on and so forth until you nearly get it down to a T, which is where Limerick are at now. Limerick went through that in 16-17, tried, test, fail, and now you see where they are at the minute. And it's pattern, let's say, so they're sticking to their pattern of play, although it looks at times, and you can hear the crowd yesterday, they kind of moan and groan that when the puck out goes to the cornerback, and it goes back to the goalie, and it goes over to the other cornerback, and back to the goalie, you hear the crowd going whatever, and that's just Cork sticking with the way they want to play. They're waiting for an opportunity to develop, waiting for a pattern to develop, and then they strike. So I know that kind of sounds a bit deep, you know what I mean? But that's the fundamental basis of where Limerick have got to at the minute now. They've got a fantastic game model. And in speaking to Paul again recently, again the author I spoke about recently, he was telling me the benefit of the game model is trial and error. So obviously you'll have instances whereby you've been tested and you failed and you learn again. Let's say it provides a good court game model provides clarity for everybody. Everyone understands the language. Everyone understands the game plan. It provides opportunity for the players to thrive, and then it gets the players to recognise patterns faster. So you see, I know I'm jumping to Limerick now, don't get me wrong. After the first quarter in the Limerick Waterford game, they came out and they just blitzed Waterford because that was kind of a reset, and they were able to analyse the game at hand and put in a new pattern of play to take Waterford down. And I just think Cork are on that trajectory, slowly but surely. Now they mightn't beat Limerick, but I think over the next, again, a bit like a Clare, next 12 months, you'll see a far stronger Cork team, to be honest.
When you're talking about the kind of repetition in terms of cornerback to goalkeeper, from a goalkeeper standpoint, what are you looking for every time you get the ball? Are you looking for basically one of your forwards to just make a run and to make the long ball, or have you identified what it is they're trying to identify?
Yeah, and again, I'll quote Paul again and again, he used the term shared affordances. So what that means is if I'm a goalie then like guys or Patrick Collins, I'm looking for an opportunity, and the opportunity only develops if the guys out the field give it to me. So when you see Patrick Collins looking up, or you see Nicky Quaid waiting for this puck out, right? He's not waiting because he doesn't know where to put it. He's waiting for the opportunity to develop. So when Patrick strikes the cornerback and it comes back to him, he scans the area again. He's looking for an opportunity, right? It's not on. Let's go to the far side and see what develops. All the while, up top, out of screen, out of picture, the forwards are moving left, right, and centre. Because I'll put it this way, if I hit a ball long, right, chances are it's 50-50. That's what it's going to be. If I hit the ball kind of to a touch of space, let's say, without really thinking or scanning, chances are it could be 55-45 in our favour. If I hit the ball when an opportunity is developed by a player, one of my teammates, in clear space, and I strike it down, my percentages didn't go 80-20. So it goes up and up and up, and it just takes time for the right thing to develop. And that's where I think Cork are on the way to, and that's where Limerick are at the minute. So you see yesterday, or excuse me, the day before, when it was 4-3 in the first quarter or whatever, and next thing you say Limerick come out and they just start transitioning better. And when you start runners, the opposition have to draw to you. If I just stand there and strike the ball, opposition can retreat, they can go back to the defence and they can set up. But if I start running with runners left and right, the opposition has to come to you. You can create an overlap, and then you've got a free ball to deliver to your forwards, which the likes of Flanagan and Gillette did for Limerick. And then with Cork, when Alan Callaghan came in and Hurling, that's what they did. So I know that's probably a long explanation, but it's much deeper than that, if you know what I mean.
It's interesting, and I know we're kind of flicking between the two games here, but it seemed that Waterford were well aware of that, and their early throws showed them a team who were going to aggressively press Limerick, and the full back line that you talk about, not give them an inch, and it looked like it was working, and it just seemed that come the water break then it was a situation of, right, we've got to get those overlaps going, we've got to move the ball through the channels a little bit more, and we get around that Waterford press. Is that what happened, or have I summed that up wrong?
Yeah. I think correctly. I think what Limerick did, let's say, is obviously they went out with a specific, I think game plan at the start just to kind of get their way into the game. Waterford, for me, they exerted so much energy. They tackled fierce hard. They threw the bodies around. There was an awful lot of fist pumping, let's say, with frees and sidelines and that kind of stuff, let's say. And so when you look after the first quarter, they had 3 points. So then it becomes a question of sustainability. Like, could Waterford sustain that for 4 quarters? And the answer is no. If you can, that level of physicality, I don't think Limerick have met it since they started. I don't think they have, to be honest, where they were. I've never seen Gareth Hegarty knocked over, to memory. I've never seen Jamie Burns knocked over. So that kind of energy that Waterford exerted, Limerick just kind of sucked it in, took it, didn't react. You know what I mean? They didn't react to anything really. Went into the first quarter, then reanalyzed the situation to show what Waterford are doing, and then went out. And again, it goes back to the form of the well-coached model. They've met this before. They've met sweepers. They've met a form of physicality, and now they know how to get around it. But you can't touch me if you can't catch me. And that's what Limerick are doing. Let's say they're running all over the place with support runners, starting from their full back line up. And if you can't touch them, how do you tackle them? If you can't tackle them, Limerick have the ball. You know what I mean? And I just think Limerick's transitioning play is far superior from that of what Waterford. And then look, Waterford on the road for 4 weeks. It was a very, very, very tough task to ask of them over the course of 80 minutes against such a strong team.
That the other part about this all is the level of skill that Limerick have is off the charts. Their handling, their hand passing. There was one phase which actually broke down what didn't end up in a score, and there's another one earlier which has a few less hand passes and does end up in a score. But there was one bit where you were like, this looks like the dream team. I was going to say the Harlem Globetrotters, but the Harlem Globetrotters always win and it's fixed, whereas actually the dream team played other teams who were trying to make a bit of a name for themselves by knocking them over. But the hand passing is at a level. Are they throwing the ball? Is it totally legal? Is there something they're doing that nobody else has done? What's going on?
Well, a simple answer is them throwing the ball. If there probably is, there's a mixture of them throwing the ball. Sean Finn to throw the ball more that I can see, but look, they're getting away with it. But I think, from the optics, okay, when you look at the game, they go, right, they're better catching the ball, they're better touching the ball, they're better hand passing. That's the easy way to look at what Limerick are doing. And the big thing is to ask why. Why are they so good at this, right? And I'm going to bring it back to the game model again, right? I just think that they've been made so uncomfortable in training. That the players have been made so uncomfortable that they've had to come through it. And through training, when you make them uncomfortable over repetition, and the players can actually adapt that discomfort, and they can get through it, and they can still, thrive and be efficient, and execute well in training through levels of discomfort, then the match becomes easy. Do I make sense?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So what you're replicating basically in training is the most uncomfortable play, or the most discomfort a management team can put onto the team, the players, to train them effectively for match situations. So by their execution is at a far higher level than anybody else. And I just think that they're at a level whereby every player is able to thrive in that environment. And there's a whole host of models, a whole host of words I can use as to why. And I just think, who can I use an example? I can use Nicky Quaid as an example. So Nicky Quaid up to probably 18, right? I know Nicky well. He's sound. We get on well, right? He wasn't in the top 4 or 5 goalkeepers in the country, right? That's where Nicky Quaid was at the minute. He was a mainstay on the Limerick team, but he wasn't kind of a pillar. Through this environment now, let's say, and I think every player in that group, I think, is probably, without getting too deep now, is allowed to feel safe. Now, what does that mean, right? In the sense that they can make mistakes, they can be vulnerable, they can say what they like to say without being ridiculed by others, and they can really thrive, right? And I look at Nicky now to say, Nicky, for me, prior to Owen Murphy's performance yesterday, was the All-Star for me, let's say. I know, and again, Nicky has time to prove that he can get the All-Star still. He's just got to a level now, and I think that's just true. Again, he's been discomfort in training, he's been made to, I suppose, react in certain ways. He's been trained over the last couple of years, and now you see where he's at a level where he can thrive. And that goes across the board for all the Limerick lads. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, right? But if you understand the base of what I'm coming from, it all makes sense.
So are you reconsidering who the best goalkeeper is in the country after Owen Murphy's performance yesterday then? Well,
I think all around, at the moment, I think Owen Murphy's the best shot stopper I've ever seen. He's like a cat. He's the best shot stopper I've ever seen. I think the best goalkeeper at the minute with Nicky's range of puck out, but he's on current form, I say, the way he's going at the minute, I think Nicky is marginally better, and he's a better, kind of quarterback for his team, if you know what I mean to say. But Murphy's shot stopping is ridiculous. I mean, it's premiership stuff. He's just unbelievable. And I think if you looked in across the whole careers, I think Owen Murphy is probably he's top 2-3 goalkeepers ever of all time. And that's because from the minute he came on with his career to where he's at now, and probably where he'll continue to go, that's where he's at. Do you know what I mean? So it's so hard to separate. You're talking about marginal percentages here as to why, you could flip a coin and pick any one of them. But I just think Nicky, as across the board for his whole team, for puck outs, for handling, for shot stopping, for possession, all that kind of stuff, he's probably scraping it a bit for me at the moment. Do you know what I mean?
When you were talking about Owen Murphy's career as a whole there, you obviously noticed a big step up at some point. So what underpinned that?
When you say step up, you mean, what do you mean? As in he went to another level?
Do you think he was the absolute standout goalkeeper in the country from the moment he arrived?
No, I wouldn't say so. No, I think every player needs time to get into a position, and he needs time to fail. He needs time to make mistakes and kind of learn. I think Owen Murphy did that over the kind of his first year, 18 months. He substituted to David Herity in his first year or two. I think his first year. I think I listened to a podcast before with David Herity where he spoke about that. He said to Cody that when Murphy gets in, he'll never get out. They won't get him out of there, probably to David's detriment. But I think when he first came on the scene, you could obviously see the quality. But again, he had to kind of get accustomed to this kind of level of operation. And once you do that, then you can see him thrive. And then with repetitive games comes experience, and then he gets comfortable in the position. And where he's at now, let's say, is just it's surreal. Some of this, the save he made yesterday off Jack O'Connor, it looks okay. What it looked like was he dived to his left, touched on the post. But the execution of that, first of all, to read Jack O'Connor as a left-handed player to go across his body or open his body and go the other way, for Owen to read that, then to get down and to touch the ball at pace was Jesus. That was the best save of the game. The other one where he came out and jumped up, that's pot luck. That's just pot luck. If he hits it, it hits you. But the one where he executed down, read Jack O'Connor, got down to his left, touched on his post, that was the best save of the game. That was just pure class.
Well, it was so good you couldn't actually see it in real time. It was only in the replay. You're like, hang on a second, wait, what happened? He saved it.
Exactly. And you kind of get into he was in a sweet spot yesterday. Owen was, whereby whatever he did, let's say, was getting pulled off. And you get them games from time to time where you just get in a sweet spot, and he was in it, and he, that ball is traveling so fast that we didn't catch the save, so you're probably, that ball was traveling 90, 100 mile an hour, you know what I mean? And for him to execute the dive, first of all, the read, so to read him first, then to execute the dive and touch it off the post, jeez, as I said, premiership stuff, sure, if David De Gea did that, they'd be saying he's well worth 300,000 a week,
Did it matter that he's an outfield player? Is that part of what has turned him into the player that he is?
Yeah, you look at every goalie across the board now. You look at Patrick Collins, Owen Murphy, Nicky plays outfield for Effin. You look at who else? There's loads of guys. Eva Cricket, all those guys. They've gone away from the traditional mold of goalkeeper, whereby you just stop the ball, poke it out long, and see how you get on. Nowadays they have to have excellent touch work, excellent control. They have to be nearly like they are the quarterback. I use that phrase a lot to say they are the quarterback, and they have a level of skill now that is on a par with the outfield players. I think they have to nowadays, because it's not just the goalie and 14 outfield players anymore, and that's been the way it's been for the last couple of years. It's now 15 players, and you see Cork, they're utilising Patrick Collins to no effect to kind of set up attacks for them. I'd say, I don't know the numbers now, but I'd say he probably had 25 possessions yesterday in open play, just from the ball coming back to him. And that's a great element of trust from the management team back to Patrick, that he can execute so well. And that's the way the goalkeeper evolution is going to keep going, guys. You're going to see, like, Owen Murphy could go out there at centre back for Kilkenny and thrive. That's the way. He's that good, like, of a hurler, of a player. And you can tell by the way he's touching the ball, and he's striking motion and all that. You can tell he's well able. Same with Nicky, and Patrick. They've just got a level of skill that's far beyond what we've seen, 15 years previous or 10 years previous.
It's interesting that you say that, then that last bit about Owen Murphy potentially going further out the field, because everything you've said is almost a mirror image of the way football goalkeeping has gone as well, using the phrase like quarterback and talking about goalkeepers as outfield players for their clubs. So can you see a Rory Beggan type situation where, to break the lines, you do have someone like Nicky Quaid or Owen Murphy running off the shoulder of the full back or of the centre back to try and add something different?
Yeah, I was asked that question recently, like after the Monaghan and Tyrone game, like, would this be the way forward for goalies? And look, I don't think so, to be honest, guys, because the level of difficulty and execution that it would create for a defence is too high. So like, if I poke the ball as far as I can poke it, it'll take 5 seconds to get down the far side, and it'll have travelled probably 110, 120 metres. I can't cover 120 metres in 5 seconds. Do you know what I mean? So, like, it's a case of football. You have a chance. Like, you can get back. You can get back to a certain with your legs. You saw, like, Rory Beggan got back and took dispossession on the Tyrone lads after there was an attack. So your body can get you back in front of the ball. Whereas in hurling, you have no notion. You just have no notion of getting back. Like, if the goalkeeper goes beyond his own half back line, there's serious trouble, because there could be a forward waiting and willing. If a defender goes back on the goal line, there's a forward waiting and willing to receive a ball. I just don't think it's going to go that far. I don't think that the game will develop that far. I think, without getting again too deep, lads, you see, I go back to Cork of 04-05 time, and that was the time of kind of the running game. Then came Kilkenny's power game, let's say, just pure brute, straight line. Then came kind of the Galway game, let's say, with physicality and size. And then now comes the Limerick game. I think Limerick, everyone looks at the games or the eras and they go, right, that was all done by the players in the field through a certain style of play. And I think when you go to Limerick now, where they're at the minute, because everyone's going to look at Limerick and go, how can we crack them? And someone might say, well, let's bring out the goalkeeper. Not going to work. I think Limerick at the minute have the right mix of academics and players, and they put it together. Do you know what I mean? And I go back to the game model. That's what they've developed. That's the next phase. Is how can you mix off the field training, again, discomfort levels in training, academics through the likes of Paul Knock developing game models, and then the players, feeding off that and then thriving on the pitch. So I think instead of what's going to be next, how to take down Limerick, I think the next level is to try and beat them at their own game. I haven't seen a game plan. I don't think there's a game plan out there to take them down anytime soon.
We'll obviously get to preview the Ireland final over the next couple of weeks, so I just want to focus a little bit more on Kilkenny in particular for the next couple of minutes. Where are they now? Because in the aftermath of the game yesterday, Tommy Walsh was saying that actually they have shown some signs of being able to adapt to the modern game. They were mixing it. There was some ball pumped into the full forward line where they were looking for TJ and later Walter Walsh, but they were also trying to play through the lines at various stages. Are they a little bit trapped in transition? What's the story?
I have to agree with you, because who did they put in the full forward line yesterday? Well, they put in TJ, and they put in TJ because he's the best high ball winner. So the percentage of the ball going in would have been a 50-50 contest. And let's say, right, and it was kind of a more hope that TJ wins it. And he's such a good player that more often than not he does win it, but it was more of a hopeful game plan as opposed to a structured game plan. And I just think that if Kilkenny are going to transition now into kind of the model that you see very evident with Cork and Limerick and the likes, it's probably going to come a touch late for some of the guys, you know what I mean? You'd love to see TJ doing in that kind of model 5 years ago, let's say, as opposed to being 33, but he still looks in good shape. But I think the traditional mode of hurling that Kilkenny have adopted over the last 20 years, whereby it's 15 on 15, have at it, see can you beat us, that's a touch outdated, if you know what I mean. And and they have adapted to a certain extent. So they're going to have to probably adapt more. And the clientele is certainly there. Like, the players can adapt. And again, it's just it's over repetition. They're probably at the moment where they're getting away from traditional into kind of, let's call it, modern contemporary style, and they probably just need more time to get it into the next level. But certainly the clientele are there, 100%. It's just how long it takes them to adapt. Will they adapt, first of all? Does it go against the Kilkenny ethos? I don't know. And like, have the personnel off the line, on the line to implement that game model, to coach it, to teach it, to review it, and get the players to learn quick, remains to be seen.
It did seem that they had adapted over the last couple of years, James, but maybe not enough.
To an extent, yeah, they did. Like, because they adapted to play, to play Wexford to a certain extent. So they adapted that. They adapted to play Galway to a certain extent. Galway, like when they faced them last year, again went to 15-on-15, which was kind of up their alley a small bit, but then it comes unstuck then against probably what you see now in Cork. And Cork are in, again, I said from moments ago, they're at the start of the journey overall, where this team can get to. Like, we 6 of the starters for the Cork team were the guys in there in 2018. So that was a mass turnover. And I think if you look at the team in Kilkenny, probably a higher number. So Cork were on a level, and Kilkenny couldn't stay with them. They stay with them to a certain extent, just by through sheer hard work, will, determination, and that'll only get you so far.
Yeah.
Then comes the smarts. Then comes the education off the pitch that's done the training, to really get you the next step.
Well, I think if you apply the game model conversation that we had at the start of this to Kilkenny, it begins to fall apart a bit. The foundations aren't there. It seems that they were reliant still on moments of individual brilliance to get them back into the game. Like, the pass to Adrian Mullen is genius. Whereas actually, if those two teams played 10 times, Cork would win 6, you suspect, or maybe 7.
I agree, and I think for a team to develop a strong game model, they have to try it, they have to fail it, and they have to learn from it, and then try again. And I think, let's say, when you mix a team with a very well coached game model, and you've got players of the caliber of Mullen, Cody, TJ, you can really, really try. And like, Kilkenny their model is not tight. I know I'm saying the model a good bit, but it's just not quite there. I do agree with you. If they played Cork 10 times under the same circumstances, it would be probably a 7-3 mix. And the 3 games that Kilkenny would win would be down to sheer dogfight, and probably individual moments of just unreal execution. And look, it's a tough one because they've been on the road, and the aura for Kilkenny is gone, It was there for a period of 15 years through sheer dominance, so it's not there anymore. So nobody fears, the word fear is I say it loosely, fears playing Kilkenny anymore. So they're going to have to get up to a level of, I suppose, preparation and kind of execution that is on a par with the Limericks and the Corks at the moment, or otherwise they're going to probably fall down the pecking order a small bit. But like that, such a traditional county, there's a reason they've won the most of Ireland's. There's a reason why they have always had historically some of the best players ever played the game. So there's no doubt them guys are going to come again, and they'll come again pretty soon, to be honest. I think you can see them
under Cody, do you think, or does it need Henry Shefflin, or does it need Eddie Brennan or somebody else?
That's such a hard question to answer, because no matter what I say, I'm going to offend someone, right? So, like, Brian Cody has been unbelievable for the game, unbelievable for Kilkenny, right? And age not to do it. Like, if he has energy to put into it, and he's adapting with the game as it's going, and say, and his man management is still as effective as it is, but then he can stay at the helm, and he can surround himself with good people. He can put people into positions to do the Paul Knurk job, or to do whatever type of job they're after. So he can certainly be the head of the whole operation, because he's seen it, done it. He's a good man manager, let's say, and he's the respect of everyone to Kilkenny, and respect of all the players, and he has that kind of aura above everyone, whereby he's the main guy, and he'll call the decisions as he sees fit. So if he brings in like an Eddie Brennan or a Shefflin in tandem, let's say, and under his wing, I again, if you know what I'm saying, that's partly under his wing, let's say, and they can try implement their bit onto the Kilkenny team, I think you get a good mix. I don't think you'll see Cody going. I think he still has a big hunger for the game, and I think it's a big ask then for someone to come in out of the blue. Because if someone does come in, guys, I know I said last week about Tipperary and Galway, you're nearly looking at a small bit of rebuild, a touch of rebuild, if you know what I mean, whereby you're developing a new game, not necessarily with personnel, but nearly with just game plan and just kind of game management, all that. You're looking at that kind of a rebuild as opposed to, and getting away from the traditional style that they played so often. So I don't think Cody's going to go. I think he'll probably do a slight change in the management team, maybe, and then probably try adapt the game plan more suited to the modern hurling.
James, brilliant stuff as ever this morning. Thanks a million for joining us.
No bother, guys. Okay, good to see you.
James Skehill, again, giving us brilliant analysis of the weekend's hurling.